Civil War starts Wednesday. How are you all this morning? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. For anybody new wandering by, it's good to have you. By the way, welcome to all the new people, and especially all the new people on Patreon. We're just getting a whole bunch of people joining over there. It's good to have you. You're finding that, just like I've said, Patreon is a whole level up, isn't it? You're getting a lot over there, and it's good to have you. So, tomorrow's election day. And of course, it's not like election day has always been. But tomorrow is the day that everybody, all the states, starts turning in their their votes. However, those votes were tallied and counted and all that. And we're going to see something happen, in my opinion, and that is the start of the Civil War. Now, why do I say that? Let me explain this here. And for those of you who haven't been with me or read my books, we've never had a civil war in this country. And no matter what you heard from your high school history teacher, the war back in the 1860s was not a civil war. If you want to, I've made videos on that. I'm not going to get into it now. But a civil war is when two or more factions are fighting for control of the same government, and that's not what happened in the 1860s. We've been involved, or we haven't been involved. As a matter of fact, most of the people on the right haven't even acknowledged or known that it's been going on. But there has been a revolution going on in the United States since 1917, probably before that in smatterings. But alongside the Russian Revolution, the communists started working to implement their plans here in the United States. And the vast majority of Americans are totally oblivious to this. I've covered the goals of the American Communist Party, taken straight out of Skousen's book, The Naked Communist. I've covered that on the Patreon channels. If you've read that, that you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I would suggest that you read that. I would also suggest that you read what is that book? The Clintons' Heroes. Oh gosh, hang on just a second. Let me see. Ah, yes, Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. So the communists have been working, and they've been very successful ever since 1917 in our country in implementing their communistic principles and policies. We've gotten this to the point where we have probably the most Marxist/communist person running for the president of the United States, presidency of the United States, and that'd be Kamala Harris. And we will see what happens tomorrow. I just met a great guy. I'm going to tell you here in a minute how to get prepared for this, but I just wanted to tell you, starting off, that Civil War starts Wednesday. Just met a great guy. Name's Matthew. Matthew, if you're watching this, good to meet you and good to have you here. He picked up the roll-off. We've been trying to clear a whole bunch of junk out of the house, and we're kind of redoing the house and putting in some good things, some security things, some all sorts of things. And so we rented up, a huge roll-off dumpster, and he came to pick it up. Well, I got to talking to him like I do, and I got to know a little bit about him. And the funny thing is that he comes from an area, matter of fact, he owns property probably not even 10 miles from my property down in central Missouri, the northern edge of the Ozarks down there. And we got to talking about things, and we found that we were very much aligned on things. He said that he spent the other evening with his son tuning up their ARs. Now, I am in no way promoting violence. But there are people who are going to make this necessary, maybe. And I'm going to tell you who they are. You've heard me talk about them before, and it's not necessarily the other side. I'll get to that in just a second. So I was talking to Matthew, and it's interesting when you talk to a lot of people how many feel the same way we do. Now, there will be some, and this is a great problem with a lot of people who consider themselves preppers, as opposed to PMPs, which I call PMP as a preparedness-minded person, and that is all-inclusive. A prepper, to me, is a person who's kind of kept it on one level. They refuse to go beyond a certain point and consider other options. They refuse to they have a favorite calamity, let me put it that way, that they're preparing for. That is a very short-sighted way to prepare. And many people in that level will say, well, I don't share anything. I'm not going to talk about anything. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. OPSEC and all this kind of stuff. I talk all the time. You know why I talk to people all the time? Kelly, she says, man, within 3 minutes of meeting somebody, you're able to put in several things that you want them to know about you. That's exactly right, because that's how you meet people. That's how you find out who's on your team and who's not on your team. Valuable to know. The people who out there who won't do that, who won't put themselves out there, who just kind of hide, run away and hide and won't talk to people. I tell you, it's like the kid who's afraid to talk to girls and can't understand why he can't get a date. Okay, you got to put yourself out there. That's the way that we know. Okay, so anyway, it was great to meet him today, and there are many people that feel like us. And I got to talking to him about this too, saying I think we're going from a revolution to a civil war. Here's why. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you who's to blame for this, and because I watched a couple of videos and I was just thoroughly flabbergasted at some things I heard. Disgusted, I don't know. Disappointed, yes. Yeah. I'm not going to be disgusted with somebody else, but I'll be flabbergasted and disappointed. What we're going to see now is if there is a Kamala Harris victory, they're going to continue at warp speed on the trajectory they've been on. They're going to continue to eat away our rights. We are going to be covered in regulation and restrictions. What we have experienced, and many say they don't like, in the past is going to feel like nothing compared to what's coming. Now that's going to be a test. That's going to be a test for all the people who have been talking big on the right about when are we going to stand up? When are we going to stand up? My contention is most of them won't. Most of them won't. But there will be some that, depending on what happens with this election, there will be some who will reach their breaking point. And then we will see what happens. More on that in a minute. If Trump wins, I believe that the other side, the left, will go from a revolution, a quiet revolution, to a civil war, meaning now, a civil war, remember, is when two or more groups are fighting for control of the same government, as opposed to a revolution, which is an attempted overthrow of a government. Okay, so we are now going to go into a civil war. They don't want to overthrow the government. They want to control the government. See how that makes it a civil war, not a revolution. Because they are in so deep. They own the deep state. They own the swamp. They own the bureaucrats. They need that apparatus. It's their apparatus. They want to control it. So it goes from a quiet revolution to a loud civil war. We saw, and a violent one. The summer of love is going to seem like nothing compared to what's coming. And, Antifa, BLM, all that kind of stuff, that's nothing. There is much more out there. We've got 10 million illegal immigrants that have been brought into this country by that faction for just a time as this. How many military age men have they brought in and dispersed across the United States? How many gang members, how many Tren de Aragua is dispersed throughout the cities and towns of this country? That's their fighting force, guys. People who have said, no, the U.S. military will stand with the people. Well, I think the good ones will. I think all the ones I know will. But I also know, I've known some who won't. I've known some very marginal military people. I'll be honest with you. They're not different than the rest of society. Okay. I've known marginal cops, marginal pastors, marginal whole lot of things. Okay. So just because somebody's in one particular job doesn't mean that they're going to be a particular way. It's a whole spectrum of people. So while I think the good ones, the good patriotic military members, current and retired or ex or former, I know there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. There's a former Marine. They're going to stand with the American people. They're going to remember their oath. They are going to continue to fight the good fight, stand up for what they have always believed, the reason that they joined. However, if they don't have, okay, I can't go there. I cannot. I'm sorry. I started to go a place that I can't go here. Maybe on Patreon. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I don't think there's enough of them because they're not going to have access to the, I'll just put it this way. They're not going to have access to the tools that they need. Okay. So it is going to be a mess. If everybody stands up, well, first off, everybody's not going to stand up. Very few people are going to stand up. And maybe this is the time that I'll slip this in. The reason that this would be necessary is because of all of the people out there who won't vote. And I'm going to say right now that I hold them responsible for the collapse of this country. People fought and died to give people the right to vote in this country. And yet we have a whole section, a third of gun owners don't vote. A third of Christians don't vote. I'm not going to say anything about the gun owners because they're all over the place. I mean, Tim Walsh is a gun owner, right? But as far as the Christians, I was signing books yesterday in my dining room because it's the only place that's big enough to hold all the books on the table. And I said, I did something that I haven't had time to do in a long time. And I said, I'm going to play a couple of other channels and listen to them. And I saw a channel to where the guy was saying that he thought he'd better take a look at who was on the ballots. And I'm thinking, what? You better take a look at who's on the ballot? Now? This is 3 days before the election. And he said he found that there wasn't anyone on there that he could vote for because nobody really reflected his moral positions on guns and abortion. He named a couple of things, and I'm saying, good Lord. We're not voting for a pastor. We're voting for a president. So these people aren't going to vote. I did something on the church channel the other day. Matter of fact, I probably should have said this. I probably should have said it because a lot of you may be interested in this. I put up a message on the church channel yesterday, Stonemont Church on YouTube here. And it was about, are Christians under the law? Should Christians obey the Mosaic law? Torah, Sabbath, and all that. And because I know that a lot of people here are interested in that or have an interest in that, wanted to let you know. It is an in-depth explanation of the truth of the matter. Too many people on both sides of that don't know why they feel the way they do. They have watched or they have succumbed or they've had somebody share with them a couple of scriptures and then convince them that that's the way. And then, man, they're going to follow it, right? Sadly, that's too often the way with so many things in our world. And yet, when I talk to these people, I find that they don't know Scripture. They don't know exactly. They know a few. They know a few things that will support their side. But anyway, I'm off. If you care to watch that, if that's of any interest to you, it's on the Stonemont Church channel. I don't allow comments on that one over there because I'll tell you, this is one of those things that is going to bring out the hatred. And I don't know, you wouldn't take hate into a church. You wouldn't go into somebody's church and stand up in the middle and ridicule them or spout hatred and tell them they're going to hell for feeling differently than you. But you know what? People will do that here on YouTube. And so I'm going to caution everybody right now, don't make any reference to it on this video. None. This is not the place for it. This is about preparedness. This is about the coming Civil War. But anyway, so this person that I was watching is not going to vote because neither one of the candidates fully align with him morally on certain issues. That's not what this country is about. It's not what politics is about. And the reason that our country has fallen to the place that it has is because these kinds of people won't stand up against the greater evil. You understand that's what it is. When there's somebody says, well, I don't like, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils. So what you're saying is, you will not stand up against the lesser of what you consider to be two evils. Congratulations. Those people are the ones that put us in this spot, because if they had been involved, we would never reach this point. Do you realize if the 30% of Christians who claim to be Christians, not for me to judge whether they are or not, but I question many of their actions and motives, and I can do that. We wouldn't be in this if they had been involved and voted for simply the more moral of the choices. And yet I see these people marching around carrying their guns, marching around with their rifle. Well, get ready. Get ready for what? You won't even vote. What are you getting ready for? They're going to curl up in a little ball. So easy to talk. So easy to talk when the enemy is not right there at you, right? Well, if Trump wins, it's on. It's on. And you'd better be ready. So how do you get ready? You get ready, as I've always said, with basic and then advanced preparedness. Okay, that's what my books are about. If you've read my books, the Stonemont series, I didn't bring them over here with me, or I'd hold them up and show you. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them through me and our website, stonemont.us. You can get your shot placement as everything mug on the stonemont.us. But I should have said these are our most popular, our hottest selling mug. See, it's got the capable calibers on there: 40, 357, 45, 10 mil. These come, by the way, in singles or in sets of 4, so that you can buy them for your friends, give them away, or have everybody, when you have your buddies over for poker, or your gal pals over for poker, or whatever, go shooting. They can all drink out of this. The set of 4 is only $80, and we pay the shipping. So stonemont.us if you'd like them. Yes, we've sold a bunch, but we just keep printing more. So getting ready for this, first off, you got to get in your head that this could happen. And then you have to be ready. I said the other day, preparing for this, you have to prepare everywhere you are. You have to be prepared at home. You have to make your home defendable. You have to have your home set up. Plywood, blankets, fire extinguishers, way to heat, way to light. If the grid is cut off, if your communications are cut off, you have to just assume that if everything that you rely on that is outside of your immediate control is cut off from you, you can still go on. And you know what it means: food, water, shelter, defense, people. Okay, that's what I was talking about before. If you don't have people, it's because you haven't gone out and gotten them. Just like the little high school guy that can't get a date. It's because you haven't gotten out there and talked to any girls. Okay, you'd be surprised what could happen if you do. I used to counsel young men on that. Did you know that? Yeah. You need to be ready at wherever you work, whether you work in an office, whether you work at a a mill, whether you work at a salvage yard, wherever it is, you need stuff there at the other end of your trip of the day. Home, work, back. You need to have everything you need there to sustain yourself for a short period of time and then to get home. And then you need to have your vehicle prepared. That means having it in good shape. That means having a good spare or two, having a jack, having, all that kind of tire repair kits, everything. Top off your fluids. You don't want to be caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I've lived through the riots of 1968 in Kansas City, and I saw how neighborhoods can go boom, like that. All of a sudden, and you're caught. You're driving down the street, and all of a sudden, the intersection 2 blocks up, it just starts. What are you going to do? And you've seen it if you watch the news. Maybe some of you lived through it. I know that over on the Patreon channel, Hondo Bob, he lived through the 67 riots in Detroit. He can tell you about it. Those of us who have seen it personally understand it personally. The rest of the people who have seen it on the news ought to be able to understand it a little bit. Okay, you don't want to be surprised. So what's coming down the road? And be very careful. Here also, I'm going to say this. As things get more serious, when you talk about OPSEC this and OPSEC that, and sometimes people are a little bit silly about it. They don't really understand what OPSEC is. For instance, I just said earlier that when I met Matthew earlier today, that he owns property within 10 miles of my property down. I've told you mine's down south of Deepwater, Missouri. Oh, and people are going to jump all up and down. Say, oh, OPSEC, don't tell people. Yeah, come down there and try to find my place. First off, why would you? Secondly, you'd be nuts if you tried. Thirdly, what? Okay, but people don't understand this. Be careful of the people who won't be involved at this level, who won't speak up, who won't vote, who won't be a part of the system. Those people that say, oh, they're all selected, it doesn't matter, voting doesn't matter, and all this. Well, they don't know. They're excusing their laziness. They're excusing their inability to stand up against something that is wrong. Simple as that. And I know they assume this position of moral superiority, well, that's a bunch of hogwash. It's just, they're just not standing up. Okay. They're showing their weakness. Be careful of these people. When it all goes to what, be careful of the person who won't do the smallest thing, the easiest thing they could have done to stand against the greater evil. You know what Edmund Burke said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. I've always contended that if in the face of evil, if you do nothing, you can't consider yourself a good man or woman. Well, yeah, but it's still kind of evil. It's still a little bit evil. Oh, for crying out loud. These people have an inability to reason. Be careful of them. If they won't do what I was about to say, if they won't do the smallest, they also won't do it the largest. If they won't do it when it's easy, they won't do it when it's tough. I don't care how much they walk around with their rifles and showing their pistols and stuff like that. They won't do it. They're not going to do it. But the day may come when everybody is going to have to make this choice, when it is brought home to you. Two of my favorite movies are The Patriot, of course, with Mel Gibson, and Shenandoah with Jimmy Stewart. And both of those, now one was about, Patriot was about the Revolution. Shenandoah was about the War of 1860s, as I've said before, not a civil war. And both were about men who tried to keep their families out of the conflict. And both of them showed how the conflict came to the families. It will come to your family. It will come to you. It will come to your family. You need to be ready. And if you're not, well, you're going to be the victim of not being ready. And that can be horrendous. Or you can just kind of roll over and go, okay, I'll go along with it. I know that I said that I wouldn't go along with things, but it's pretty tough now. I know that I walked around with my rifle. I know that I did this. I know that I did, but okay, well, now it's just too tough. Talk's cheap, right? So it may be coming. You need to be ready. Get your head around it. Prepare. And more now than any other time, be careful who you listen to. Be careful who you talk to. Be careful what you say. And be very, very deterministic about who you associate with. Because your survival and the survival of your family could depend on it. I said the other day when I think we were driving back, or I don't know, maybe it was here, but I was talking about it, and I asked Kelly, she was off camera, and she says, I said, honey, you ever known, she accuses me of being the hardest person she's ever met, harshest judge of people. And so I asked her so that you all could hear. I said, honey, have you ever met anybody who was a harder judge of people than me? She said, not even close. But you know what? That doesn't mean that I don't have good friends. It doesn't mean that I don't have good associates. It doesn't mean that I don't have a good circle of friends. What it means is I don't have any of the wrong ones. And the ones that I have, and there's a good number, are the right ones. And it all comes down to that. The quality of what you've got. And what you're willing. Willing is not the right word. Well, I'll just use it. You'll understand what you're willing to stand for and what you're willing to stand against. I would say more like what you're willing to put up with, because that's the other side. But what you are able and determined, let me put it that way, that's a better way to put it. What you are determined to stand for and what you are determined to stand against as a result of the guidance of the good Lord. Stand up for what's right. Stand against what's wrong. Do it the smart way. Do it the smart way. It doesn't mean you martyr yourself. It doesn't mean that you put yourself out there as some kind of sacrificial lamb. You do it the smart way. And I talk about that a little bit more on the Patreon channel. I don't get into a lot of it here because, to be honest, on YouTube, we just got a lot of drive-by idiots. Probably not you, but there are some, okay? And I talk about ways to live under oppression, the mafia way. If I didn't welcome everybody, I think I did, but if I forgot to, welcome to all of you who have joined us on the Patreon channel. It's great to have you. I try to welcome each person personally, individually, as I see them join. And so if I've missed you, it wasn't consciously on my part. This is your welcome to Patreon. Good to have you. Welcome to all the rest of you who would like to come with us. You'll like it. You'll get a lot out of it. And we're getting into times that it's even more important than it ever has been before. So get ready. Okay? At the end of all these, I always say that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And while overall preparedness prepares you for handling a great majority of threats, it's important to have an understanding of what specifically may be coming. And if it's civil war, it won't be like, that's what I was talking to Matthew about. It won't be like that war that they talk about in the 1860s. It's not going to be, it's going to be technological. It's going to be informational. The other side will be violent in many ways. It will be financial. It will be all sorts of ways. Maybe I'll do one on Patreon about that. But you need to be ready. Okay, all right. Like I said, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Get out there and do something. Tomorrow's going to tell us. Have a good one. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.